Hello, my name is Jonathan Hyam, and I'm the curator of music and recorded sound here at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, located at Lincoln Center. Welcome to Remote Links, a series of videos exploring the life and legacy of composer and artist Maryanne Amacher. The New York Public Library is proud to be home to Maryanne's archive, where it will be available to the public for years to come, free and open access. I'd like to introduce you today to Remote Links, a series that will be hosted by Bill Dietz and Amy Cimini, editors of Maryanne Amacher's selected writings and interviews. I'm thankful to Bill and Amy, Blank Forms, the publisher, as well as the Cervalvis Foundation, whom we partnered with on this series. Thank you and enjoy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Remote Links. Our guest today is Matana Roberts. Roberts is an internationally renowned composer, band leader, saxophonist, sound experimentalist, and mixed media practitioner. Roberts works in many contexts and mediums, including improvisation, dance, poetry, and theater. She made 2 records as a core member of the Sticks and Stones trio in the early 2000s and has gone on to release a diverse body of solo and ensemble work under her own name on Constellation and Central Control over the past decade. She is perhaps best known for her acclaimed Coin project, a multi-chapter work of panoramic sound quilting that aims to expose the mystical roots and channel the intuitive spirit-raising traditions of American creative expression while maintaining a deep and substantive engagement with narrativity, history, community, and political expression within improvisatory musical structures. Constellation began documenting the Coin project in 2011 and has released the first 3 of a projected 12 album-length chapters to date, with a 4th chapter arriving this October.
Thanks, Amy. I just wanted to add a little bit. It's kind of funny, in preparing for this recording today, I was just really struck that it's been something like 20 years since my first chance encounter with Matana Roberts. I was an undergrad at the New England Conservatory, and she was, I believe, finishing graduate work there. And I can still remember a performance in which Roberts was performing with a band in the super kind of shabby basement space of the conservatory's St. Botolph Hall. I had to look up that name today. At that time, I could have never imagined that I'd have the great privilege and pleasure of one day teaching alongside her, as I now do at Bard. But what I could imagine then was how profoundly important an artist Roberts was very soon to become. Like Amacher's, Roberts' practice refuses simplistic divisions between the material and the conceptual. For both Amacher and Roberts, as sound explorers, Roberts' term, musicality itself, a term that too often functions vaguely as a catch-all, is re-recognized as a space suffused with history, meaning, and intelligence. I've said before that this series is maybe in part a kind of medium for staging missed encounters. And in that sense, I couldn't be more sure that Maryanne and Matana's encounter would have been nothing less than explosive. And so in that sense, I couldn't be happier to greet Matana here today.
Thank you. That was an incredible introduction. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to read, there are so many wonderful passages in this book, but the first passage that really struck me was actually in the opening introduction, labeled under premature attempts. And I will read without my glasses. Over the years, whenever I considered making a record, I had to reject the idea, since all of my work is about the sensitivity human beings, biological intelligences, really have, but may not be conscious of. Why should I make 40 minutes of sound to be thrown on a turntable while any number of automatic activities are being performed by the listener. Totally compelled to give attention to these discoveries about mind, perception, and the physical nature of sound, rather than to accommodate ideas to musical or recording formats, I went ahead and developed these sound worlds, even though there were only limited ways at the time, performance and installations, to communicate them. I decided to not let thought or investigations be dominated by constraints of what I knew to be nearly terminal technologies. What has resulted is really a quote unquote new music, where many ways of hearing and being with sound can exist, experienced up to now only by audiences attending performances, installations that I've created. That passage in particular, but her whole kind of trajectory mimics the ideas that I think about in terms of refusing certain boxes that are thrown on composers, that are thrown on musicians, that are especially musicians or composers who are working in experimental mediums. I really appreciated how this passage reminded me of the importance of a critical stance around these things that we are, these things that are placed on us as musicians, composers, creators, and how we can question them, and question them in ways that doesn't just represent some sort of surface level explanation or surface level refusal. I really love the way in which she talked about this idea of a recorded document and questioning this idea of the recorded document, because I make records, right? But one of the things that I find really problematic with the recorded document is a very particular sense of dissatisfaction. And I feel like this passage really represented to me what that means, and the many different avenues of which we can go down to explore and figure out new ways of hearing, new ways of being, new ways of seeing, while also keeping in mind, personal filters and just particular logistics around sound.
What do you mean by personal filters? I just want to make, just because it's such a great term.
She talks about that in many different interviews that I've seen, where she talks about, there's the sound and there's a sound being communicated, but you also have to take into, how do you say, consideration that everyone's ears are different. Like the sound is being placed in completely different environments and very personal environments depending on the person, which begins to make you question, well, how can we really describe the sound in depth if we're all listening from these very different filters? And it's something that I really think about in my own work. And then also this idea of the sound world. I love thinking about sound worlds, this
Right.
immersion, this immersive experience that we all have. I mean, she's so fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.